apart, our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour, how trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion, and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind, seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather the spirit growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun, winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion, and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor, Michigan. We are a congregation who has been an active, liberal religious voice in the Ann Arbor area for over 150 years. My name is Carter Smith, and it is my pleasure to serve as the acting director of music ministries of this congregation. I am joined this morning on the chancel by our worship team, including Reverend Manish Mishra-Marzetti, our senior minister, and Reverend Theresa Rohlck, our Congregational Chaplain and the director of the Chalice Bells. We are also joined this morning by some special guests, including Satori Shakoor, a Detroit-based professional storyteller and former member of George Clinton and the Parliament Funkadelic. We're also joined by Melly, Houghton, who is filling in for our Pianist-in-Residence, Allison, Halerz, and is our guest accompanist this morning. She also happens to be my fiancée. And last but certainly not least, by Rick Witten, who is filling in for our technology consultant, Mike Halerz, and running our live stream and cameras this morning. It is such a joy to be in community with all of you this morning. Whether you are here physically in this space, or you are joining from the comfort of your own home, whether you have called this community your spiritual home for many years, or you are joining us for the very first time, thank you for offering the gift of your presence. It is very special that we are joining together in worship today. If you are new to this community, welcome. We encourage you to join our in-person newcomer welcome after each service, which is held in the Jackson Chapel. You can find the Jackson Chapel as you exit the sanctuary on the right side of the hallway. Here you can meet members of our community who can meet you and answer questions you may have. As we have transitioned into a colder and sometimes wetter season, our social hour will look a little different from earlier this fall. We have a limited number of tables in the social hall that you may visit after each service. We ask that you maintain some physical distancing while in the social hall. And today, I would encourage you to visit the UUAA bookstore. They are going out of business and having a clearance sale, so today is the last day that you'll be able to visit them in the social hall. So, after you visit the UUA bookstore, please enjoy a donut to go. You can pick one up on your way out after the service. Yesterday marked an important and somber occasion. Transgender Day of Remembrance, an annual observance on November 20th, honors the memory of those whose lives were lost in acts of anti-transgender violence. In November of 1998, Rita Hester was murdered for being transgender. Over 20 years later, her murder has yet to be solved. In 1999, a candlelight vigil was held in San Francisco to mark Rita's death and others who had died for simply being seen as transgender. This morning, I would like to offer a prayer from Reverend Sunshine Jeremiah Wolf. On this Transgender Day of Remembrance, we remember those who have been murdered for being who they are, those who face violence on a daily basis, those who have lost loved ones, and those who worry for loved ones. May we come to a time when we ceased to shame children around gender roles and expression, where we allow for freedom and exploration of identity and expression, and to a world that operates from love, especially when things are difficult and confusing. May all of us who live with the threat of violence find support, strength, community, hope, and safety from violence. Amen. We are gathered for worship.
It is a good thing that we are gathered together this morning. In a world that holds so much uncertainty, in a world in which we human beings at times inflict such cruelty on one another, it is a good thing that we gather to bring alive the spirit and the values of this community, which foremost are grounded in the spirit of love. It's with that understanding that week after week we light our chalice together. This morning, Reverend Theresa will be helping us in the lighting of our chalice. That flame that we bring alive at the beginning of our gathering, symbolizing that love that we hold inside each of our hearts, that we seek to bring alive not only for ourselves, but in our service to the broader world, seeking to share and expand that light of love and possibility. In honoring that hope, that intention, would you join me in saying together our community's familiar words of chalice lighting? We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Thank you. We are a community gathered together not around any set of dogma or creed. There is no expectation that we all hold exactly the same beliefs. That would be very un-Unitarian Universalist of us. But rather, we gather together around a shared set of promises around how we will journey together, how we will companion one another in our journeys of shared spiritual exploration, ethical exploration, and growth, individually and collectively. This intention is captured in our community's covenant. Would you once again join your hearts and voices as we say together these words? The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another. May it always be so.
Good morning. Today I have a story. It's called The What-Ifs by Emily Kilgore and illustrated by Zoe Persico. Cora was a nervous girl, always jumpy, always on edge, always wondering if something grim was going to happen. Because of this, the what-ifs loved her. Heavy, lumpy, and grumpy, the what-ifs are everywhere, in bright rooms and dark corners, in busy hallways and hushed libraries, in big cities and small towns. They slink in from unknown places and swiftly attach themselves to people when they least expect it. Then they whisper a question so quietly, so softly, so gently, that the person usually doesn't know the what-ifs are there at all. From the moment the sun first peeked through her window in the morning to the time she pulled a warm quilt over her head at night, Cora's what-ifs followed her every move. What if my dog runs away? What if I forget my homework? What if the sun stops shining? What if my crayon breaks? Many people think about their what-ifs for a moment or two, but can briskly brush them off. Cora, though, could not. It didn't matter if the what-ifs questions were silly or frightening, likely or impossible. As soon as Cora thought about them, the what-ifs grabbed hold of her. One week, Cora had more what-ifs than usual. Her piano recital was just days away. Even though she had practiced and perfected her song, the what-ifs started creeping in. What if my fingers shake? Cora questioned on Monday. What if I make a mistake? Cora wondered on Tuesday. What if nobody comes? She thought on Wednesday. What if too many people come? She worried on Thursday. By the day of her recital, the weight of the what-ifs was unbearable. Cora stood backstage, anxiously awaiting her turn to perform. The longer she waited, the more what-ifs appeared, each one grabbing hold and weighing her down more than the last. What if I trip on stage? What if the bench is too tall? What if the pedals are squeaky? What if I start coughing? What if I play a wrong note? What if nobody claps? Cora, a small voice whispered, "Are you all right?" Oh, great, Cora thought. What if Stella thinks I'm a crybaby? What if she doesn't understand? It's nothing, was all Cora could muster before a tiny sob escaped her thinly pressed lips. It doesn't sound like nothing, Stella said. Cora took a deep breath and said in a hushed voice, I just have too many what-ifs. They make me imagine bad things that could happen, like, what if I mess up? Or what if I sneeze during my song? Everybody gets what-ifs, Cora. Just a minute ago, I asked myself, what if Cora's sad and I can help? Listening to Stella, Cora started to wonder, what if she can help me? What if I can trust her? I wish mine were like that. My what-ifs are grim. Cora looked down. Do you ever have good what-ifs? Stella asked. I didn't know there were good ones, Cora whispered. Of course there are, Stella said. Like, what if there's chocolate cake after our recital? Or what if I play better than ever? Cora chimed in, peering at the boy pounding his piece on the piano. Cora suddenly felt her what-ifs begin to change. The heavy, lumpy, grumpy what-ifs slowly slunk away, while new ones arrived in their place. Just then, the teacher announced it was Cora's turn. Cora walked out to the piano without tripping. The bench was just the right height. Her hands quivered as they hovered over the keys. But then she sat down and began to play, and the grim what-ifs slowly continued to disappear until, clunk, she hit the wrong note. Oh no, what if everybody laughs at me? What if I get booed off the stage? Cora wanted to cry. She tried to ignore the people staring, waiting for her next move. Then, out of the corner of her eye, Cora saw Stella. What if I can do this? She asked herself. Cora took a deep breath and started to play again with confidence. Her fingers danced across the keys. And when she finished, the room filled with applause. Cora took her bow and smiled at Stella. She couldn't help but wonder, what if I made a new friend today? The end. It's my pleasure now to introduce our social justice connection today. Mike Muha and Tim Richards, both veterans, are going to come and speak to us a little bit about the UUA group, UUA Veterans for Peace, a group we might not know a lot about. So thank you very much for coming and enlightening us.
What if I tell you about Veterans for Peace? I'm Mike Muha. This is Tim Richards. We're both Vietnam veterans and members of Veterans for Peace. Veterans for Peace is an international organization of veterans and allies who seek to increase public awareness of the costs of war, restrain our government from intervening in the affairs of other nations, reduce the arms race, including eliminating nuclear weapons, and abolish war as an instrument of national policy. Specifically, cost of war. Well, beyond the cost of the lives of the military people and the civilian collateral damage is the monetary cost of war. People complain about President Biden's initiatives to spend $3 or $4 trillion over 10 years to help improve our lives and our society. The military budget for 10 years is over $7.7 trillion. People don't realize that. We could cut the military budget in half and still have a bigger military budget than China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea combined. Another cost is damage to the environment. The Pentagon is the single largest institutional consumer of fossil fuels in the world. If the Pentagon was a country, its fuel use alone would make it the 47th largest greenhouse gas emitter in the world. In addition, the military has to heat, cool, and light all their buildings around the world, all 560,000 of them. Washtenaw County chapter of Veterans for Peace, in addition to the national issues, has some more local initiatives. We raise money for our scholarship fund to provide scholarships for students pursuing studies in peace studies programs or other programs that actively promote the study of global conflict resolution and issues of peace and justice. On Martin Luther King Day, we give presentations at Eastern Michigan University, U of M, and the Ann Arbor Public Library on the theme of what they did not want Martin to talk about, war and militarism. This focuses on Dr. King's teachings on how poverty, racism, and militarism are all connected. We also have what we call Arlington, Michigan. We set up a display at Veterans Park on Armistice Day, which is called Veterans Day now, with one marker for every military member killed in Afghanistan and Iraq. We don't have accurate statistics on the number who have died of suicide during that time, but it's many more than that. The purpose of this display is to honor those who have fallen, to provide a place to grieve, and to educate the public on the costs of war.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is another cost of war. Many veterans who suffer from PTSD end up inappropriately in the criminal justice system. The UUAA Veterans for Peace subchapter, as a part of our congregation's Radical Welcome initiative, is focusing on welcoming and supporting formerly incarcerated veterans and encouraging and advocating for the use of the restorative justice process for veterans who encounter the legal system. Restorative justice is a process outside the court system that focuses on repairing harm and restoring wholeness to those who are harmed and to those who have caused harm. For more information or to join us, you can find us in Realm under the group UUAA Veterans for Peace.
Thank you, Tim and Mike, for all that you've shared and the work that you're advancing. We are grateful. Words of George Odell. We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. We need one another in our hour of success when we look for someone to share our triumphs with. All our lives, we are in need, and others are in need of us. For those who are regular attendees, it will be no surprise when I say that we are in the middle of our what's known as our stewardship season, which is our annual fundraising season. And even as I acknowledge that, I'm going to invite you not to tune out as we sometimes do when those announcements come up on the radio station or something like that. I know because it happens to me. And I want to take a moment as we share that focus together to speak specifically to those who might be a little bit newer to the concept of pledging within Unitarian Universalism, and then I'll share a word after that with those who are more familiar with the concept. For those for whom this idea is a little bit newer, I recognize that, and we have had many people joining us for the first time or in new ways online, on demand, in person here in our sanctuary. You may be leaving one-time donations, cash, either in the baskets as you're leaving or electronically making one-time donations. It's an important thing to know. We're very grateful for that, and it's deeply appreciated. And yet, in the way our finances work in Unitarian Universalism, our annual budgets are not so much based on those one-time donations because they're unreliable and unpredictable. We don't know how much of that to expect in any given year. They're based on the community members, our friends' best guesstimates of what they can want to contribute financially over the course of a year. So for those of you who do often make one-time donations, either electronically or cash, I often invite those individuals to just think about what that might be if you were to annualize it. And if you could annualize it, could you then make that non-binding pledge commitment, which you can always change later if you need to, if circumstances change, but that pledge data factors into our budgeting in a more impactful kind of way. We are not like other denominations. Some of you have heard me say this, such as the Catholic Church or Episcopalianism, where if there's a local shortfall in money, there might be a centralized authority that's able to send resources to help plug a gap. That's not our case in Unitarian Universalism at all. In fact, if anything, it's the exact opposite of that. Our centralized authority, denominational offices, they exist because we, local communities, send them dues that help them function and lead that centralized work in the way that they do. Each local community is therefore entirely self-funded. So the money that we raise defines what level, what type and kind of programs, services, and staffing we can have for the upcoming year. We also, again, like some other denominations, most commonly in Judaism, where you can be told you will give a fixed percentage, here's the percentage, of your income to your religious spiritual community. We don't do that either. What we do is we tell you what our approximate costs are to do all the things that we do, and that is about $150 to $175 per month per person is what it actually costs us to do all the things that our community does, which is bring alive the spirit of love and justice locally and in the wider world. We recognize and are deeply committed to concepts of socioeconomic justice. So what that means is there are individuals, members, friends of our community who can give much more than that, and they do. And there are others who need to give much less than that due to their individual or family circumstances. We honor that. Where you fall on the socioeconomic scale is not a defining characteristic for how fully you belong here. We all belong here. And so we bring goodwill and trust to that. And that goodwill and trust is expressed through the ask, please do the level best that you can do. And we trust that each of us will in support of all the good work that we're trying to do. Now, for those who are longer-term pledgers, are well familiar with the concept and how it works in our community. I at times get asked the question, like last year I gave X amount of money. Shouldn't that be enough to just repeat that for the upcoming year that is starting? The answer to that is no, not really. And anyone in our community who's been an owner of a small business or you're familiar with nonprofit administration and leadership, you'll understand the reasons why. There are costs of existing, of doing what we do that are not fixed, that are not static. Significantly among these are healthcare costs for employees, the employer's contribution for such. In the 12 months that we're in the middle of, those costs alone have increased twice. Once this past June, and they're going to increase again in January of 22, amounting to a total percentage increase of somewhere between 11 and 12%. Hold that. Now, this number, the employer's contribution towards healthcare costs for our employees, it is second only to the amount that our community pays in mortgage servicing. It is that significant, and appropriately significant, commitment that we make to our employees. Hold that side by side with what we know about inflation in our country over this year, somewhere in the 5 to 6%, which affects everything. It affects salaries, it affects material costs, things we must buy to exist. That means to do the same work that we've already been doing, our community faces an increase in costs of somewhere between 15 and 17% in 1 year alone. This is why simply repeating a static number from year to year actually means that our community has less money. So, my friends, it's with all of that I invite each of you, particularly those if you've never pledged before, please consider entering our pledge process. You will help support and define the budget that we have to draw on, the services and staffing and programs that we can afford to have in the year ahead. You do that by going to our congregation's website, www.uuaa.org. On the right-hand side of that webpage, you'll find links available for making a pledge for calendar year 2022, which is also our fiscal year. Whatever you can give, it is gratefully received. Please, I encourage you, as we trust one another to do our level best, to do your level best. In addition, each Sunday we collect offerings, which are always gratefully received as we enter that time of offering now. You may text to donate. The link will appear shortly on your screen. You may also, if you're in person with us today, as you're departing, there were baskets available in which donations can be left. Our community's financial generosity is so deeply appreciated and gratefully received.
And hear the earth call, feed the deep power of being in all, keep with a web of creation your vow, giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry, voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now, my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race.
Rise with me, if you would, as we offer our words of dedication for the generosity that has been extended. Let's join our voices to the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action. We dedicate our lives and these, our offerings. Please be seated. Well, it's my immense pleasure to introduce to you this afternoon an individual who is known by some of us already in our community, Miss Satori Shakoor, who has been with UUAA, our community, before. Satori and I met locally in Ann Arbor, socially initially, in local Ann Arbor storytelling circles, and we had the opportunity to get to know each other better since then. Satori, as Carter mentioned, is a former bride of Funkenstein. It's part of the George Clinton and the Parliament Funkadelic, which many of us might know, and went on from there to found, based in Detroit, a local, a storytelling community known as the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers, which meets at the Wright Museum of African American History. I had the distinct privilege and honor of being Satori's guest a couple years ago there to partake and share a story in that community. And this gift and power which we know, so many of us know the healing power of personal storytelling and how impactful it is too. It touches us, it touches our souls in such powerful and deep ways. The United Nations recognized this too and invited Satori to travel globally, to share with other communities around the world the healing power, the creative impact of storytelling. So she's done this not only in Michigan, but around the world. Could you join me, please, in extending a very warm UU Ann Arbor welcome to Miss Satori Shakur.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just say that, first of all, gratitude is my religion. Thank you is my only prayer. So I thank you, Reverend Manish, and the church. I thank the veterans for your service and your service beyond service. Were you there when they shot my son Trayvon? Were you there when they left him on the ground? Oh, that law, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. I can't breathe since they shot my son Trayvon. When I lived in Los Angeles in the early 90s, I would drive down to South Central LA every Friday night and go to the African American Culture Center, where I would listen to Dr. Malana Karenga interpret the news from a Black perspective. Now, if you don't know who Dr. Karenga is, he invented the African American holiday Kwanzaa that celebrated all over the world. He's a professor of Africana Studies at Cal State Long Beach and a cultural Black nationalist. He's round, jolly, charismatic, funny, smart, and I love listening to him break it down. Now, I loved it so much, I'd go back on certain Sunday afternoons when he would invite guests who were activists, intellectuals, scholars, who would lecture on Black power and Black empowerment in the areas of their expertise. And that's when I met Neely Fuller Jr. He's a sociologist. And that's where I heard Neely Fuller Jr. say, if you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what it is, how it works, everything else that you do understand will only confuse you. Now, come on. I understood white supremacy, racism, what it is and how it works. How could I not? With listening to these brilliant and intellectuals. Plus, I'm black. Now, I thought I understood. Now, it's August 2006. I'm back in Detroit, where I was born and raised. It's the weekend. I'm running errands. Cleaners, post office. I walk into a CVS pharmacy to return a portable CD player that isn't working properly. I approach the clerk, tell her my issue, show her my receipt, and she pulls a replacement CD off the shelf and says, "Have a nice day." And I'm on my way out of the store, but wait a minute. Do you mind testing this out? Because if it doesn't work, I would hate to bring it back. And she says, "Sure." And she grabs a fresh pack of batteries off the rack, opens the CD player, pops them in, and the LED lights right up. That's when I realized that the CD player I was bringing back is defective. I want a refund. She says, "Let me get my manager from the back." Now, middle-aged white man, about 5'9", belly over his belt, walks out from the back. He looks at the CD player and says, "Well, where's the packaging that came with the CD player?" I said, "Oh, I threw it away because I fully expected the product to work." I said, "But I do have the receipt, and I only bought it a couple days ago." He looks at the receipt, hands it back, and says, "If you want a refund, you'll have to write the manufacturer." Why? I bought it from here. I bought it from CVS. Now, he's standing right underneath the CVS store policy sign that says in big black bold letters, "No hassle returns, full refund within 30 days with a receipt." So I point out the sign to him, and he seems agitated, angry almost that I'm showing him the sign. And I'm like, I could feel his whiteness all over me, judging my shoulder-length dreadlocks, my oversized t-shirt and baggy pants. "If you want a refund, you'll have to write the manufacturer." Okay, so I take the replacement CD and head for the door. He runs ahead of me and blocks my exit. I move to the right, he moves to the right. I move to the left, he moves to the left. He forces me back in the store and tells the cashier, "Call the police." I said, "Yeah, call the police. This guy won't let me out the store." Next thing I know, he has me in a chokehold, wraps his legs around mine, pulls my feet from underneath me, and boom, my knees hit the floor. Boom, my chin hits the floor, and I'm stunned. I see him kick my purse to a pair of feet that I later find out belonged to his son. And then I feel his overweight, sweaty body on top of mine restraining me. I will never forget the weight of his body on top of me restraining me. "You better hope you don't have a record downtown." What? "I'm making a citizen's arrest." For what? "You tried to steal the packaging." Huh? Now I can see the feet of the customers standing in line waiting to pay for their items. And I can't see their faces. And I swear to God they can't see mine, because I have never been so humiliated in my life. I don't know how many moments later, but I hear the voices of 2 white officers come into the store. They tell the store manager to get off me, and he tells his partner, "Check this guy out. He was on top of her when I came in." They check my purse for weapons. There are none. And he takes me outside to question me while his partner takes the store manager to the back. When he sees me limping, he offers me a seat in the front of his squad car while I fill out the police report. I'm shook. I'm traumatized. I'm shaking and in tears while I tell the police officer what happened. He looks at me, scratches his head, he looks confused, and he says, "In the 27 years I've been on the Southfield police force, this is the first one. This is the first one, new one to me, and you have the receipt?" Now, I'm trying to make sense of it too. And I hear me saying to him that My mother died last year. My son died 3 weeks ago. I have a numb anger, a hole in my soul. Maybe my grieving attracted the violence to me. I didn't have a clue. I did not understand at the time that I was victim blaming myself. It was my fault that this white store manager assaulted and falsely imprisoned me. Police officer's partner comes out of the store. He has a piece of plastic in his hand that I recognize as the packaging to the CD player. And I hear them confer and chuckle, well, maybe we should keep this for evidence. And then they tell me that the store manager said basically the same thing I said. And I'm thinking, if the store manager said basically the same thing I said, why is it that at the end of his story, I'm a criminal? They asked me, do I want to go to the hospital? I said, no, I just want to go home. And when I get home, I sit down at my computer and I document everything that has happened to me. I pour my trauma, my shock, my anger, my pain into a 6-page email that I send to CVS headquarters. The next day, I get a call from CVS Damage Control. Ms. Shakur, we're so sorry about what happened to you yesterday. What would you like us to do? And I hear me telling them, well, I don't want him to lose his job. I mean, jobs are hard to come by now, but maybe he shouldn't be a manager because clearly he doesn't know how to interact with the public. They said, well, Ms. Shakur, we fired the store manager and his son this morning. And I remember feeling sorry for him that he lost his job. Meanwhile, I've got to take a week off from mine from singing and dancing in a musical downtown because of the bruises on my knees. I didn't know it at the time. I did not have a clue that I was giving myself a standing ovation. You know, I took the high road. I forgave him. I put this white man's well-being ahead of mine. I'm a good little Negro. My friends had to convince me to sue him. I'm sitting in front of the black attorney saying, well, maybe he could do community service. The attorney says, well, we're not suing him. We're suing the corporation who made it possible for him to be in that position to do what he did to you. And unfortunately, the only thing they understand is when you hit them in the pocket. Okay. For the next 2 years, I suffered from PTSD. Every time I drive past a CVS store, I have an anxiety attack. I can't breathe. I don't walk inside a CVS store for 10 years for fear I might get beat up. If someone touches me on the shoulder unexpectedly, I jump out of my skin. If your voice gets too close to my ear, I scream. I'm the poster child for the angry black woman. A couple of years later, I get a settlement for $25,000 from CVS, a tip to the black woman with the PTSD. A year later, Barack Obama's president. I lose that $25,000 and all my other investments when Wall Street crashes and too big to fail fails. And Neely Fuller Jr. said, if you don't understand white supremacy, racism, what it is, how it works, everything else you do understand will only confuse you. I thought I understood. I mean, I was breastfed on activism. I was recruited into the Black Panther Party in junior high school. I remember sitting on my front porch with my stepmother, Sadie, watching the 1967 Detroit riots like it was a movie. I walked past National Guard holding guns, sitting on tanks on my street corners every day until one day, they were just gone. When I was 16, I washed my straightened hair to get a nappy afro, hoping I could wash white Jesus out of my brain and replace him with black Jesus, to no avail. To this day, Jesus is a blue-eyed, blonde white man gazing up into a beam of light. My only concession, he will never be my savior, because I'm created in the image of God. For years and years and years and years, I suffered the slings and arrows of microaggressions. and racial injustices leveled against me. I marched, I protested, I raised my voice. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. When Rodney King was beaten to a pulp by 4 white police officers to the tune of not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. I walked off of my corporate job, fist in the air, into the streets of LA to join the other protesters over to the AME church, only to walk out on the outdated, tired Martin Luther King messages of nonviolent protests. An hour later, I'm balled up in my apartment, flinching from the sound of gunshots and sirens and helicopters and glass breaking against concrete. I remember how we waited for the profound words of Rodney King would speak after the verdict. And Rodney said, "Can we all just get along?" No, we can't, Rodney. But then Barack Obama said, "Yes, we can. Yes, we can." And Trump said it's a hoax. Fake news. Make America great again. Again? Again? I thought I understood. Until last year, 2020, when I got my 2020 vision and COVID-19 and the execution of George Floyd changed the world. I think about all the black and brown people and other rights people and those who supported them, who had been falsely imprisoned, murdered, executed, lynched for centuries and centuries and centuries before George Floyd died. I think about all the black and brown people and other otherized people and those who support them who have been murdered since. And the hits just keep on coming. Not guilty, not guilty, qualified immunity. Nothing changes. And I realize I don't understand nothing about white supremacy, racism, what it is, and how it works. Oh, and that made me sad, angry, but mostly just powerless. And who wants to feel powerless? So I asked myself, is it enough to understand it intellectually? Is it enough to march and protest and vote and donate and raise my voice? What else can I do to end racism in my lifetime? How can I use my life in the service of a world that works for everyone, with no one and nothing left out? Because racism is killing us. All of us, each and every one of us, a little bit every day. Now, I take Neely Fuller's words to heart. I decide to investigate his claim. I decide to go on a quest to understand. And that's when I meet what I call the chip. Yeah, the chip is like a computer program. It's been embedded in my brain since birth. It's been grooming me since the day I was born to be a soldier in the army of white supremacy. I'm shocked to discover that I've been marching 24/7, nonstop, in the service of perpetuating racism, in the big fat global lie of white superiority and the religion of capitalism. Whew. It scares me to think that I'm being used by something without my knowledge, without my permission, something I can't even see. My hands are dirty in this thing. I'm complicit. I'm complacent. I'm compliant. But then everybody's hands are dirty in this thing. We're all complicit, complacent, and compliant. Because everybody got a chip. Obama got a chip, Oprah got a chip, Chump got a chip, Honey Boo Boo, Pookie, and Nay Nay. We all got a chip. And depending on your race, class, creed, gender, color, culture, chip tells you how to see good people on both sides. Tells you how to listen to your echo chambers. Tells you what to say, not say, do, not do, be, not be, so you don't have to think about how to react when you're in certain uncomfortable and threatening situations. I'm a black woman. My chip has programmed me to believe that I'm not worthy. I'm subordinate, not as pretty, not as smart. I shouldn't even try to compete with my white counterparts. I know that's a lie, but the chip has programmed me to shut up, let it go, girl, keep it moving, because you might not get that job and you know you need that job. Every time I try to step out of the box of my program, the chip polices me right back in to keep on marching in the service of perpetuating racism and the big fat global lie of white superiority. Because a lie that big and that twisted needs everybody to participate and to buy in. I thought I understood. So when I married my husband, almost 4 years ago, I promised him I would keep a clean house. But I'm not gonna clean it. I'm not gonna do it. I'm busy. So I decide I'm gonna hire a house cleaner. I wanna hire black, so I get all the necessary references and I hire LaToya. And she is great. Husband comes home, house smells like fabulosa. Shoes are lined up all neatly in the closet. Everything is organized and in its proper place. Her attention to detail is unmatched. Problem is, she's spending 9 hours in my house cleaning. My house is hostage, but I don't say anything because she does a good job. Well, a couple months later, I go to meet a friend for lunch. I come back home and the lower part of the house looks exactly like it did before I left. I don't hear anything. I tiptoe to the staircase to listen, and I hear LaToya up there popping gum, talking to her friends, having a good old time. And that's when my chip gets triggered. I turn into what my mother used to call Miss Ann. She's up there having a good time. I'm paying her by the hour, and I don't mind paying her by the hour, but I don't like the feeling I'm being played while she stretches her coffee break by 2 hours. Oh yes, I'm on my way up there to check LaToya, but wait, malfunction. There's nothing in the CHIP program that tells a black woman how to check a black housekeeper, especially when my mother was a black housekeeper. So I disrupt the CHIP. I check it and I ask her for a flat rate. Because when I would walk past the kitchen when I was a kid, I would hear my mother gossiping with girlfriends on the wall phone in the kitchen. She accused me of stealing. And what I want with them old clothes. And then when she find the bag sitting over by the furnace, had the nerve to ask me did I want to come back to work. Do you know she wanted me to call her 5- and 6-year-old snotty-nosed kids Mrs. and Master? Oh, no, I didn't take that job. I don't want to leave LaToya traumatized like my mother. I ask her for a flat rate. She gives me one. She's in and out in 5 hours, and everything is fine for months until she falls in love and becomes a Hebrew Israelite. Now, I don't have anything against any religion. All religions are fine with me. But when she falls in love and becomes a Hebrew Israelite, she becomes unreliable. Cancel, reschedule. Cancel, reschedule. Oh, my dog ate his vomit. I've got to take him to the vet. Forgot, tonight is Shabbat. Cancel, reschedule. Cancel, reschedule. I'm telling my husband, LaToya's coming tomorrow. LaToya's coming next week. LaToya's coming. LaToya's coming. Cancel. Meanwhile, the dust is piling up on my tabletops. And I promised my husband I'd keep a clean house. LaToya better come clean my house. Cancel. So I call Angie's List. Angie sends me 5 referrals with 5-star ratings. I call the first one. Kimberly, a white middle-aged woman, looks like a hippie with tats all up and down her arm with a Cruella de Vil hairdo, comes to give me a walkthrough and a fee. Now, my chip is triggered. I don't know whether I can trust a white woman to clean my black house. But when she tell me she gonna get the dust off the blinds, get the dust off the ceiling fans, wash the floor, and make the beds, I said, you're hired. She She comes back the next week with a partner. They go upstairs to start cleaning, and I hear noises. Oh, my chip is triggered. It's on fire. I'm having a PTSD fantasy. Are they upstairs booby trapping my house? Am I going to find a noose in the closet? Are they dropping my African art on the floor? Calm down. I have to calm myself down. Calm down, girl. They're just cleaning up there. Calm down, breathe. Now, I'm in between Zoom meetings, so I click on Netflix, because what else is there to do during COVID? I'm watching the movies, and then I hear them coming downstairs. About an hour later, I switch off Netflix. And my chip turns me into a step and fetch it, because I can't let this white woman see me sitting here looking lazy. I can't let her see me sitting here looking like a stereotype, like I'm not doing nothing. So I pull my laptop up on my lap, and I pretend like I'm typing. It's a flashback to my 10th days when my boss used to walk by and say, Satori, are you working? Yes, I am, as I minimize the solitaire game on my computer desktop. Yes, I am. I have to talk to my chip. I'm in a debate. Girl, this is your house. You can do whatever you want to in your house. You are free in your house. But I can't square this white woman cleaning my black house. I'm uncomfortable. So I go in the kitchen so I can give her my black version of the white privilege story. You know, my mother was a maid, and I used to help her clean during breaks from college in the summer. College? Did she go to college? Oh my God, is my privilege showing? Should I offer her that bag of old clothes I was going to take to the Salvation Army? And then I realized this woman don't care nothing about what I'm saying. She probably want me to get out of her face so she can finish her job, get paid, go to the next house and make some more money. Because this is her business. She drove up in a white van with her logo splashed across it. She called a colleague to bring her a vacuum cleaner part that drove up in an identical white van with her logo splashed across it. She has a fleet of maids. She's a corporation. My mother had a job. She took the bus to Grosse Pointe to clean houses for $18 a day plus car fare. She was excluded at the time from the Social Security Act. She couldn't get unemployment benefits and no retirement benefits. This is not the same thing, girl. Go sit down and stop chipping. So I sit down and write her the check. She's out of the house in 3 hours. She comes back a few weeks later with her husband, who tats all up and down his arm. My chip tracks him as a white supremacist, but I check the chip. I don't pay it no mind, because he and Kimberly, they clean a good house. Now I pause, I sit down, I think about how I let that chip use me for 3 hours. Subtracted 3 hours from my life trying to work out a white woman cleaning my black house. I think about the years of my whole life of the chip navigating my black body through spaces. When you walk into Bird Dog Goodman, don't act like a criminal. How do you not act like a criminal when you're not a criminal? When you go to that job interview, straighten your hair and code switch, making sure you put ing on the words, and for God's sake, don't say ain't. I walk into a room and it's all white people. I look for the exit and another black face. And then I just go, am I okay? Am I safe? Am I all right? Chip uses me not to say what there is to say so I can keep little phony, inauthentic agreements in place in my relationships. Yeah. If you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what it is, how it works, everything else you do understand will only confuse you. By now, I'm using Neely Fuller's words as a roadmap to my moment-to-moment freedom. And I decide to go on an inner search and destroy mission. Find the chip, disrupt it, dismantle it, destroy it in every necessary moment of life. Because if I want to end racism, I have to look at how the chip is using me. First thing I do is I stop getting into little arguments and debates with white people about their denial of white privilege. It's the chip. Denial has a certain comfort. When people who are clearly racist tell me they're not racist, I believe them. Fish don't know what water is. When some white people do the crazy things they do, like dress up like animals, paint their bodies, storm the Capitol with a noose looking for Mike Pence, I understand. It's the chip. It's using them just like it's using me. Problem is, we don't know it. And that's what makes us dangerous. Dangerous. Now I'm looking for some hope. So I'm on YouTube and I hear a lecture by Dr. Joyce DeGruy. She wrote the book Post-Traumatic Slave Disorder. And she says the highest value is in the relationship between people. The highest value is in our relationship between people. So a few months ago, Charlie LaDuff, a loudmouth Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, asked me would I be on his podcast, No BS News. Now I'm all about no BS, and I love me a loudmouth. So I'm on Charlie's show the next week, chopping it up, laughing, having fun, when he starts talking about ex-felon, ex-mayor Kwame Kilpatrick's wedding, and how awful the optics were that Mayor Mike Duggan is there. And what did I think? I said, well, I think that if you do the time, pay for the crime, you're free to invite whomever you want to your wedding. Yeah, I know that, but this is a corrupt politician. These are corrupt cronies. I need to hold them accountable. They need to apologize to me. And I said, you're right, Charlie. Everybody should be held accountable for their actions. But I like to get to the root of things. And at the root of things is white supremacy. Oh, no, you're talking BS. You're talking in phraseologies. I said, Charlie, you said you left $1 million on the table when some journalistic outlets wanted you to talk about puppies and rainbows, and you wanted to talk about corrupt politicians and racism. That's right. I said you started No BS News so you could have freedom of speech and full self-expression. That's right. But Charlie, had you stayed, you would have been used to promote the political agendas of these outlets. All I'm saying is that I like to get to the root of things, and at the root of things is the system of white supremacy, the system of advantage and oppression. And until you dismantle that, you're going to be writing about corrupt politicians and racism for the rest of your life. And whoever sits in those seats of power will be used, Charlie. Oh, I don't want to talk about this, and we move on to different topics, and the show is over. But I don't feel complete. So I called Charlie a few days later, and he's cool. Low-key, nothing like his on-air personality. And I said, Charlie, when I was talking about white male supremacy, I wasn't talking about you. I wasn't talking about individuals. I know that. I said, well, if you know that, then you know that I'm talking about a system of advantage and oppression. I'm talking about an institution, a machine, or like a 24/7 Oz God. It's the context for our life. All we are content producers. All of our stories are a testimony to either how well the system is working to our benefit and advantage and or to our demise. And until you dismantle that, you'll be right. You might as well write about puppies and rainbows because nothing will ever change. That's all I'm saying, Charlie. And then I tell them about the chip. The chip? Yeah, the chip. Depending on your race, class, creed, gender, color, culture, tells you how to see that bag of Skittles like it's a gun, how to listen to your echo chambers, what to say, not say, do, not do, be, not be, so you don't have to think when you're in certain uncomfortable and threatening situations. And I tell them how I'm on an inner search and destroy mission to dismantle my chip, destroy it. And I invite him to do the same. And then I thank him. I thank him for calling out corrupt politicians, holding them accountable. I thank him for bringing us BS-free news, because it's important. And then we hang up. And I feel complete. And I'm here to say that all those years ago, listening to Neely Fuller, his words have now become a roadmap to my moment-to-moment freedom. Investigating his claim has led me to answer a few questions like, what else can I do to end racism in my lifetime? How can I use my life in the service of a world that works for everyone with no one and nothing left out? Yeah, I will continue to march and protest and raise my voice and donate and vote, but more importantly, I will find a chip, disrupt it, dismantle it, destroy it in every necessary moment of my life so I can get on the other side where there's love and freedom. So I invite you to do the same. Because I want to live in a chipless world, a new world. So I have to stop chipping. And in the words of that great philosopher, George Clinton of Parliament Funkadelic fame, free your mind and your behind, and your chip will follow. Thank you for listening.
Stay risen. Please stay risen as you're comfortably able. Satori, we thank you so much love and gratitude for you and your presence with us today. As we go forth and enter this new week, I know that I'll be holding Satori's words in my heart. Moment by moment freedom. Noticing in ourselves when conditioned messages emerge that don't serve us and don't serve the world around us, the beloved world we are trying to build, the one that is needed. And we, Unitarian Universalists, as good as anybody else, we know this because it is part of our faith. It is built into the fabric of who we are as a spiritual, religious, ethically oriented community. Continuing to work on ourselves individually, yes, for our own personal benefit, but so that we can be a force of good, of love, of possibility in the world. This is what this denomination, this is what this tradition is built on and dedicated to. So step into that call boldly, along with me, along with one another, knowing that you are held, supported in that courageous act, moment by moment, by this beloved community, until we meet again. Go in peace, go in love, be love.